Hi everyone, Rukshan here, and thanks for joining me for this video. I'm just going to take a look at this statement that Tanya Davies, Member of Parliament in New South Wales, has put out this morning in relation to forced COVID-19 vaccines and discrimination, particularly in relation to the workplace. And the reason I want to highlight it is I think it's very important to show people that we still do have politicians within our community, from the major parties even, that do have certain principles and, certain convictions and certain morals and ethical standards that they believe in that can't be compromised by, this craze about public health advice and this thing about this all being a 1 in 100-year pandemic, right? Because all of our leaders so far, many that we've seen actually, except a few independents, have been hiding behind public health advice. They've been hiding behind their party. They've been hiding behind the global pandemic, and they haven't really come to the forefront with their own views and their own ideas and what they actually believe is the interpretation of either the law or what their responsibilities and rights are to people within the community. So, we should applaud when a member of parliament, regardless of your own political leanings and your own ideas about how good or bad politicians are in general, it's really important to look at these leaders when they make these statements and get behind them, because it really opens up the public discussion about these topics. See, over the past few months, a lot of people have reached out to me, particularly in the last week or so, with letters and stuff they've gotten from their employees or email chains that they've had, saying, look, this is what's going to be happening in my workplace. What should I do? What are your thoughts on what's going to happen? And as flattering as that is, for me to be in that position where people ask me these things, as an individual, making these types of videos and doing this kind of commentary online, there's not really much change that I can affect at an individual level, right? However, with these politicians, particularly ones who are in major parties, when they're speaking in this manner, they can get the ball rolling, right? They can start a discussion. They can make it more accessible for even people like me to discuss this topic. See, if I was to discuss these things without this kind of statement from this MP, it would be labeled as, misinformation. Rukshan's trying to hinder the efforts of the vaccine rollout and all this kind of nonsense. But really, that's not what any of this is all about, right? This is about looking at this issue in a broader context, because it's not just about health outcomes. The decisions that we make today, it affects so many different industries in so many different ways, and it also affects certain, rights and freedoms that we assume that we've had that were, could not be removed by the government, right? So it goes to so many different layers and so many different problems that it's very important that we openly discuss them, and whatever decisions that are made are taking all this into account. So I'm going to read this statement because I think it's very important. Here it goes. The Prime Minister's comments in the past few days have left the door wide open for employers to force their employees to be vaccinated. The federal government has effectively privatized compulsory COVID-19 vaccinations. This weekend, the New South Wales government announced compulsory vaccination for all construction workers and tradesmen in Western Sydney who want a job. Workers in Western Sydney are being forced into vaccinations for fear of not being able to provide for their families. The policy of no jab, no job is an attack on my community and the people of New South Wales. No citizen should be forced or coerced into having any medical treatment or procedure for fear of being discriminated against. I acknowledge the work of the Premier and the New South Wales government in managing this pandemic. There is no roadmap for these unprecedented times. However, no person should lose their job if they do not get vaccinated. A person may not be vaccinated for any number of medical, ethical, or religious reasons. We as a government should be protecting people's individual rights and circumstances. Employees should not be forced into COVID-19 vaccination. This is an assault on individual freedoms and civil liberties. The people of Western Sydney are being discriminated against, penalised, and treated like second-class citizens based on their vaccination status. In addition, by forcing a COVID-19 vaccination on workers, businesses may be liable for adverse reaction employees or unfair dismissal for any employee who reasonably refuses. The potential liability for businesses could cripple an already hurting economy. No business should have to carry this legal risk, and no employee should be forced to have a medical procedure they may reasonably not want. I am leading the campaign to legislate that there can be no blanket mandate for COVID-19 vaccinations and to ensure that nobody will be discriminated against based on their COVID-19 vaccination status. This legislation will maintain appropriate balance for certain industries such as health, aged care and transport. I call on all members of parliament to stand up for their community and ensure that nobody is coerced, segregated or discriminated against because of their vaccination status. I mean, it's so refreshing to hear a politician put their thoughts and their own, convictions, their own principles behind this kind of message to the government, to their federal government, and to the wider community in general, right? Because that's what this statement does. It sends a message to the entire community. Now, of course, this is just one member of parliament, and we've had other independent members, and I think Senator Malcolm Roberts and a few others, Pauline Hanson, who have come out and talked about these ideas, right? But I think the difference here is we have a member of the Liberal Party in New South Wales expressing these views as well. So you can see it crosses political boundaries. It's not about a certain ideology. My guess is that so many of our leaders in Parliament right now, state and federal, have these kind of concerns about this issue, but are afraid to speak up about it because of the community backlash, right? Because, Herald Sun will put up a post that saying that you're a spreader of misinformation, when really what's happening is this is an adult conversation about rights, about freedoms, about how far we go as a society to mandate a medical procedure, and what impact that will have on a whole, spectrum of different things that can't be avoided. You can't just close your eyes and say this is a 1 in 100 year pandemic, that this is because of public health advice, and we can just let go of all of our principles and let go of all the things that we stand for in this country and just do all these crazy things. No, there has to be justification. There has to be adherence to the law, our constitution, and most of all, we have to ensure that we protect the rights of individuals, and the choices that they want to make, because that is one of the key things about living in these kind of Western liberal democracies, that the expectation that individuals have these protections and rights, despite whatever the circumstances are. So I think good on Tanya Davies for expressing her views. Again, how much traction this gets, it's hard to see, right? Because the way the media kind of works on these issues, because they are the main influencer, they kind of dictate how these stories get framed in the public. So as individuals, I think we should get behind and share this statement. We should share, support this member and tell them that, we are happy that they are at least discussing this in this manner, just to show some support. The same way that you show disagreement with people that you don't agree with when they put out a statement. I think the opposite is also important in these times. And with that, I want to leave this discussion with a video of Senator Rand Paul in the United States. And, I found his video that he put out a few hours ago to be really, just really kind of express what I'm trying to say in just a more articulate, straightforward manner. And it really goes to show you that once you have a certain view, once you have certain principles, once you have certain foundations that a nation is built on, or, certain ideas about rights and freedoms, it's very hard to mold that in a different direction for certain people, for certain politicians, and for certain individuals. So this vaccine debate, and whether we should all be, on the same page, is just impossible to see it as being a realistic take that's going on right now, right? People are going to have different views and express themselves differently. And I think Rand Paul speaks for a lot of people who have taken a stand to say that this is just a step too far, what the government in this country and all countries around the world at the moment are doing in terms of forcing their citizens to accept their policy objectives without any say in their own individual rights and freedoms. Watch this video.
It's time for us to resist. They can't arrest all of us. They can't keep all of your kids home from school. They can't keep every government building closed, although I've got a long list of ones they might keep closed or might ought to keep closed. We don't have to accept the mandates, lockdowns, and harmful policies of the petty tyrants and bureaucrats. We can simply say no, not again. Nancy Pelosi, you will not arrest or stop me or anyone on my staff from doing our jobs. We have either had COVID, had the vaccine, or been offered the vaccine. We will make our own health choices. We will not show you a passport. We will not wear a mask. We will not be forced into random screenings and testings so you can continue your drunk with power reign over the Capitol. President Biden, we will not accept your agency's mandates or your reported moves towards a lockdown. No one should follow the CDC's anti-science mask mandates. And if you want to shut down federal agencies again, some of which aren't even back to work yet, I will stop every bill coming through the Senate with an amendment to cut their funding if they don't come back to work in person. Local bureaucrats and union bosses, we will not allow you to do more harm to our children again this year. Children are not at any more risk from COVID than they are from the seasonal flu. Every adult who works in schools has either had the vaccine or had their chance to get vaccinated. There is no reason for mask mandates, part-time schools, or any lockdown measures. Children are falling behind in school and are being harmed physically and psychologically by the tactics that you have used to keep them from the classroom during the last year. We won't allow it again. If a school system attempts to keep children from full-time in-person school, I will hold up every bill with two amendments, one to defund them and another to allow parents the choice of where the money goes for their child's education. Do I sound fed up to you? That's because I am. I'm not a career politician. I practiced medicine for 33 years. I graduated from Duke Medical School. I've worked in emergency rooms. I've studied immunology and virology. And I ultimately chose to become an eye surgeon. I've been telling everyone for a year now that Dr. Fauci and other public health bureaucrats were not following the science, and I've been proven right time and time again. But I'm not the only one who's fed up. I can't go anywhere these days without people coming up and thanking me for standing up for them, whether I'm at work or at events in Kentucky, at airports, in restaurants, or in stores. People thank me for taking a stand. They thank me for standing up for actual science, for standing up for freedom, for standing against mandates, lockdowns, and bureaucratic power grabs. I think the tide is turning as more and more people are willing to stand up. I see stories from across the country of parents standing up to the unions and school boards. I see brave moms standing up and saying, my kids need to go back to school in person. I see members of Congress refusing to comply with petty tyrant Pelosi. We are at a moment of truth and a crossroads. Will we allow these people to use fear and propaganda to do further harm to our society, economy, and children? Or will we stand together and say, absolutely not, not this time, I choose freedom?